Hello everyone, welcome back, and today some pretty crazy news regarding FC Barcelona that Hansi Flick might take over Xavi's job as the head coach of the club, and I think a lot of fans are pretty excited given the fact that there would be a new person in charge, and maybe this could take Barcelona forward, and of course hopefully do better than they did this season. But in my opinion, is it the right appointment? Is it fair to Xavi given the treatment that Laporta and the rest of Barcelona's board gave him in the past couple weeks? So really, I just wanted to talk about all of that today. And the first thing I want to say is it's so difficult to keep up with what's currently going on at Barcelona because one day it's Xavi, then it's Rafa Marquez, then it's Thiago Motta, then it's Hansi Flick. And, that's been probably the main candidate, the one that Barcelona have been consistently linked to this entire season. And yeah, in my opinion, I don't think it's the wrong time to appoint someone new because I think, in all honesty, given the fact that Xavi, didn't have the best year, I think maybe he's taken the club as far as he can take them. I wasn't really going to expect a crazy change next season if Xavi was in charge. But, maybe it's a little bit more of a risk to bring Hansi Flick in because does he match the club's philosophy? Is he going to be able to bring his ideas and implement them into a club that, of course, is known for playing a little bit different than Bayern? And yeah, we don't really know what's going to happen. But in my opinion, I would be excited to see someone come in and, try and stir things up, try and make some change in the team because I think right now, even given the fact that the squad on paper is one of the best teams in the world, they just didn't play at that level at all or anywhere close to it this season. So, is it the worst idea to bring someone in new? I don't think so. But then again, Xavi staying for one more season and then in 2025, you can hopefully go with someone like Jurgen Klopp. Obviously, that seems like a long stretch, but, it could happen. Yeah, I just don't know exactly if the club hiring Hansi Flick right now is the right idea, but I definitely hope that it is. If that happens, and I hope Hansi Flick, he comes in and he finds success here, and he's able to implement his ideas that worked so well at Bayern when they won a sextuple. In one season, they won 6 trophies. I hope he can implement those ideas into Barcelona, and I think a lot of fans are excited about, the work rates that his teams produced and, the effort that they brought to every single game. I think they want to see that with Barcelona, and I would, of course, love to see that as well. And I definitely think Barcelona in the past couple years, they've struggled to keep up with the physical aspect of other teams in the Champions League, and maybe that's what's separating them from the top, because I think they have so much talent, but have they really been able to produce it in the biggest moments? I think hopefully that would be another manager coming in and maybe making that mentality change, and I think a lot of Barcelona fans, that's what they're hoping that Hansi Flick would be able to do, because, he did so well with that Bayern team. Of course, things didn't really work out with the German national team, but I think he just had a World Cup. Obviously, that's the biggest trophy in the sport. But also, Germany didn't make it out of the group stage, which wasn't a great achievement given the squad that they had. But they also didn't do well in the 2018 World Cup. And so, I don't want to say that's all Hansi Flick's fault. I didn't really keep up with Germany as well. Maybe so I shouldn't just talk about his time at Germany. But it obviously wasn't as successful as he wanted it to be. I still think, he does have some interesting ideas. Does it match right now with the current philosophy of Barcelona? I don't think so. But some fans think that's what Barcelona needs to keep up with the current level of the game because there's just so much physicality involved. In Barcelona, they're just getting outrun, they're getting outworked, and the mentality that the club has, that's, I think, what's separating them from the other top teams around the world. Because, like I said, on paper, Barcelona should have done so well this season. I mean, coming off 2 trophies last year, and then you sign players like Gundogan, Cancelo, Joao Felix. I mean, these are players that definitely should have elevated the team, but it just didn't happen. And I think a lot of that partly is due to Xavi because like I said, maybe he took the club as far as he could take it, and maybe it is the right idea to start with someone new, but I definitely don't think the treatment of Xavi from Barcelona's board has been fair to him. Some people will say football is a business, so at the end of the day, the club needs to do what they think is best and not care about, the feelings of Xavi, but I think Xavi is a legend of the club, and, he announced he was leaving in February. He gave the club so much time to find a replacement, and then a couple weeks ago, he announced he was renewing, he was going to stay for one more year, and then you go and find Hansi Flick. To me, the timeline is just such a bad look for the club, in my opinion. Maybe some people will disagree with me, but how I see it, Xavi wanted to leave in February. Laporta, I think, maybe given the financial situation, given the fact that he thought it was going to be difficult to bring in another coach, he said, Xavi, can you stay for one more year? And if your head's in it, if you're able to compete at the highest level, can you stay for one more year? Xavi said, I will. And then, he made some comments in the press conference, and I saw some comments. Some people were disagreeing with the comments that he made. I agree it's probably not the best look to say that we can't compete with other teams, but I took it as he was talking about financially and the fact that Barcelona, they can't go and buy a couple players that he wants to buy. And maybe some people could see that as an excuse, and we shouldn't ignore the fact that Laporta has spent a lot of money on Lewandowski, Rafinha, Koundé, especially the summer before the last one, to bring in a lot of quality into the team and basically revamp the club. And yeah, he's put a lot of effort into the club. But Xavi, he's also missed out on a couple players that he wanted. But I still think there are no excuses, given the squad that he had, for them to perform that poorly that entire season. That is terrible. And that's just, they underperformed so much. I mean, given the squad that they had, not even just going and winning a trophy, I would not have minded Barcelona going trophyless if they had played so much better. If they were close enough, if they were competing at all levels. But each tournament, they just got outclassed. And in the league, they just didn't look like the best team in the world, or the best team in Spain for that matter. So, yeah, it just didn't work out. And, some people I think are really excited about Hansi Flick, not just because of the success that he had at Bayern, but also the fact that it's a new coach and maybe someone that could bring new ideas to Barcelona. And like I said, given the way that the game has progressed, maybe it's not the worst idea to bring someone in that doesn't exactly match the philosophy that the club typically hires, but we'll have to wait and see if it works out. I could see it being a little bit riskier than keeping Xavi for one more year, but I wouldn't have been surprised or expecting anything much different if Xavi had stayed at the club. So maybe it's a risk, maybe it's a gamble that Laporta is willing to pay. I'm interested to see what happens, but in my opinion, I do think it's a real possibility that Hansi Flick is the coach of Barcelona in the summer. I also think that completely changes the dynamic for the summer because, Xavi had some targets that he wanted to sign, but Hansi Flick, I don't think he's going to have those exact same targets. He's going to want to bring in different players that, occupy different roles in the team. Maybe that's going to be good because, the targets that Barcelona were identifying in the summer, I wasn't exactly very excited for them, but again, I know that the club's financial situation, it's not going to allow Barcelona to go and sign a bunch of great players in the summer, but I still think you can do really good business given the financial situation. And Hansi Flick, there's been some talk that he would identify different players than Xavi would. I don't know who those players would exactly be. I think it's kind of too early to tell. But yeah, I mean, I am excited if Barcelona do have another manager. And I think Xavi's time at Barcelona, I think for his case, he wanted to leave in February, so just let him leave. I just don't understand this treatment from Laporta to ask him to stay. That's how I see it. He asked him to stay, and then, a couple weeks later, you announce that you're going with a different coach. It doesn't really make much sense. And given all that Xavi gave to the club as a player and also as a coach, I just don't think his status at the club, it warrants this treatment. And I've defended Xavi a lot this season, but I definitely think and completely agree that he could have done a lot better this season. He underperformed as well. I think some of the lineups that he put out and some of the instructions that he was giving to players, it just didn't work. And I think he took way too long to adapt with, Christensen coming into the midfield. I think that did help the club, but it just took him so long to figure that out. And, they were just getting outran and outworked and hit on the counter every single time without a defensive midfielder. And it took until February to finally play someone in that position. I know Oriol Romeu didn't work out, and he was just really poor every time he came on, so I'll cut Xavi some slack, but he also was the one that recruited him, even though, yeah, I know the financial, it makes it difficult when your most expensive signing in the summer can be Oriol Romeu, but no other club in the world would probably be able to sign Gundogan on a free transfer, Cancelo, Joao Felix on free transfers, or on loans. He still had so many good players, and given the fact that they just won La Liga last year, of course, they could have done so much better. So yeah, Xavi, maybe it is the right idea to bring someone new in, but I just don't like the way that the club has handled this situation. And it might sound obvious, but I think this appointment can go a couple different ways, and one being maybe this philosophy that Hansi Flick is trying to implement in the squad, it just doesn't connect with the players and the club, and then in a couple months, Rafa Marquez might take over the first team. You don't want that to happen, but on the other hand, Barcelona, I think this season they've looked really slow, they look sluggish, they just look passive. They look way too predictable. Maybe Hansi Flick can switch that up. Maybe he can make the team move a little faster, have some hunger to try and score some goals and be more exciting to watch because, man, this season was, if Lamine Yamal didn't start almost every single game, it would have been really difficult to watch some Barcelona games this season because they just looked so predictable. They were just moving side to side. There wasn't really any hurry to try and score a goal. It kind of felt like a lot of games there wasn't any energy until like the last couple minutes, especially in the first half of the season. They left it late so many times. Some people will say, oh, that's just them being clutch in the last couple minutes. But in my opinion, I think a game should be exciting to watch for 90 minutes. And that's the old Barcelona. So maybe Hansi Flick, with his different type of ideas, it would definitely stir some things up at the club. And maybe it would get people into shape and kind of see the best of some players that we really haven't seen the best this season. I would love to see that happen. And if Hansi Flick does join, of course, we all want to see that. And I've talked about Julian Nagelsmann and Thiago Motta. Those were the two coaches I personally would have been most excited for. But that's not to say that Hansi Flick is a bad manager. I just really didn't keep up with him as much. I know that Bayern team that he had was so dominant, and I understand, to have that much success is obviously a really good sign, but then I don't really know what happened the season after with him in Bayern, and then of course with the German national team. I didn't keep up enough, so maybe I'll have to look into that more, but I don't know, I just wasn't completely convinced because the philosophy, it's just a little bit different than what Barcelona is used to, and that could be good. That could be what Barcelona needs to start competing at the top level because, last time the club won a Champions League was 2015, and you have the greatest player in the history of the sport, and you let him go for free. Yeah, that was all just terrible, but, given the squads that they've had in the last few years, they definitely could be doing a lot more. And so maybe he's the change that the club needs to get back to the top level and really compete in today's game because it's definitely a lot different than, when Barcelona were very dominant. And I know a lot of Barca fans are just excited for a new change, for someone else other than Xavi. And like I said, I'm in agreement that he took the club as far as he could take it. And if he does coach Barca next summer or next season, I'm not expecting anything crazy, like anything vastly different from what we saw this year, which I don't really want to say. You would expect a lot of change given the fact that how bad Barcelona were last season and how much they underperformed. But with Xavi, given the limited budget that he could work with, I just don't think there would be a crazy change from this season to the next. So maybe it is the right time to bring Hansi Flick in and give him the keys to Barcelona and, try and give him the signings that he wants to make because, of course, his style is a lot different. And will that work with the players that he currently has? That's up for debate, so maybe he'll have to make a couple more signings. And yeah, I think maybe it's a little bit more exciting just to have someone as the new coach, but you don't want to be hiring someone every single summer. You want this to be a long-term project. So can we see Hansi Flick at Barcelona for the next, 3 to 5 years? That's I guess we're going to have to wait and see. But like I said, in my opinion, the treatment that Laporta has given Xavi, I think it's been pretty poor, in my opinion. I don't think Xavi said enough wrong in that press conference to really warrant this decision. And I just don't understand the treatment of Xavi because, he went and won 2 trophies with the club last season, and then this season things didn't work out. The team was really underperforming. Xavi was not doing very well, and in February he took all the pressure and he said, I'm going to leave. So the club will find someone new in the summer. This is my last season at Barcelona, and yeah, you guys can look for someone else. And Laporta, I think he spent that time just trying to convince Xavi to stay. That's how I see it. Some people in the comments said that it was Xavi that was trying to convince Laporta to stay. I don't think that's how it was, but I could be wrong about that. We don't really know what's going on the inside of the club. But I think Xavi, he was done. I think he was emotionally just checked out from the season because of how poor it was going and all the pressure from the media. I think it was just all getting to him, and he wanted to leave. And then, things got a little bit better when he announced that he was leaving. And then at the end of the season, they came to the conclusion that, yeah, he should stay for one more year, and then in 2025, we'll look for a coaching candidate that can take us into the next couple years. And that, I think, was probably the right idea because initially, if the plan this entire time was to hire Hansi Flick, then why didn't you just plan for it in February? So then you didn't kind of play with Xavi and I don't think he knows what's going on right now because there hasn't even been a meeting between Xavi and Laporta. Yeah, I hope we hear something soon because for Xavi's case, I just don't like the treatment. Maybe that's because I liked him so much as a player, so maybe I have some bias there, but just the same thing happened with Messi. I think Laporta handled that situation so poorly. It's just such a bad look. And you just can't disrespect some of the greatest players to play for the club. And that did so much for Barcelona. So I think that is frustrating in my opinion. I'm pretty, frustrated at Laporta. But like I said, we don't know what's going on the inside. Maybe this isn't all going to happen. It's not confirmed that Xavi is going to leave. It looks likely that Hansi Flick will be taking over now, but it's still not confirmed. But I don't know if you all are in agreement with me, but I think Laporta's treatment of this situation, especially given the fact that how much Xavi has done for the club, I think it's a bad look, in my opinion. But am I more excited about the possibility of Hansi Flick being Barcelona's coach next year rather than Xavi? Yes, I will be completely honest. I am more excited about Hansi Flick, but I think that's just given the fact that it would be a new coach and it's just unexpected how the team is going to play. It's going to surprise me, which I like that other than kind of knowing what you're going to get with Xavi, which is, sometimes passive, boring games, where Barcelona, maybe they can scrape by and get some wins, but, you want to be dominant, and with the players that the club has right now, I think they can be dominant. I think they can be one of the best teams in the world, and with the academy that they have still producing great talents, I think there will be a couple players, that join the club, and that's another thing. Is Hansi Flick going to depend on the academy as much as Xavi? That'll be up in the air for sure. But I think Xavi's done very well at, implementing some players from the academy, even though those players from La Masia are so good that I think a lot of coaches will probably be putting him in the first team as well. But we'll just have to wait and see, because currently Xavi is still the head coach unless, there's some reports that change while I'm making this video, which could definitely happen, because there's so many switches in this. And, I don't really know who's going to be the coach next year. If it's Hansi Flick, I would be excited about that idea. I'm not 100% confident on him or really anyone. So I don't know what's going to happen. I think we're all just kind of waiting to see. But Hansi Flick becoming the next coach of Barcelona, I don't think it's terrible. Some fans are just saying that the philosophy and the impact that he wants to make, maybe it just won't work and it won't connect with the players. But that's to be seen. I think maybe he could be the change that Barca really needs to get back to the top level. But as always, thank you very much for watching my video. I do appreciate it, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. And, this Barcelona stuff, it's just interesting to talk about, and it's difficult to keep up with because, just a couple weeks ago, I was making a video that Xavi was staying next season, and if I was excited about that, and now it's Hansi Flick, and if I'm excited about that. So we'll just have to wait and see. But as always, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Peace, Barca. See you all later. Peace.